Everybody, welcome to a live edition of PromoHomo.tv. I am your host, Nicholas Snow, coming at you live. It's 3:20 p.m. on August 17th, 2016. With me in the studio today, I have Anna and Laura Meeks. You can see Laura's website right there on the screen. It's laurameekscoach.com, and Meeks is spelled M-E-E-K-S. So, Laura has an announcement she's going to be making in the media that I don't think she's made in the media before, but people know her as a sought-after life coach and professional speaker. As a certified LifeMastery Consultant, Laura Meeks can help you reignite your passion for life and help you to live a life you would love. Laura is the author of Dream On, Timeless Strategies for Reigniting Your Passion for Life. She served our country as a United States Air Force pilot and retired as a major in 1995. Since then, she has been a speaker, a teacher, and a successful business owner. She was vice president of a multi-million-dollar consulting firm and now turns that experience into gold as a life coach. Laura offers inspiring workshops to sold-out audiences around the country. She reignites lives by providing transformational, in-depth coaching programs that help clients achieve new heights of success, meaning, and spiritual aliveness. And Laura and Annie are going to come up right after the official opening of PromoHomo.tv.
Built upon decades of multimedia entertainment activism, this is PromoHomo.tv, connecting the circuitry of humanity. This program is distributed in association with Pink Banana Media. I'm your host, Nicholas Snow, openly gay in the media since the mid-1980s. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at PromoHomo.tv. And on Facebook.com/Nicholas.Snow. For their generous support of this episode, I would like to thank Desert Regional Medical Center, Desert AIDS Project, Lulu California Bistro, and 849 Restaurant and Lounge. PromoHomo.tv is proud to spotlight many important organizations and causes, including Palm Springs Pride and the LGBT Community Center of the Desert. You may also find me in the pages of GED Magazine, GayDesertGuide.com, the Huffington Post, and other media outlets. For this and so much more, visit PromoHomo.tv. And now, on with the show.
And here I am, and I'm actually going to adjust the camera a little bit because I know that I need to bring our guest on based upon, usually I have one person in the studio and they can sit further away, but today I have two people and I bring them to you now. We have Laura Meeks. Hi, Laura.
Hi, how are you?
And Annie. Hi, Annie.
Hi, Nicholas. How are you today?
Fantastic. I'm so happy you were here. So I actually do have a nice two-shot of you that I'm going to leave it on. So you, let's talk about, I think, one of the most interesting parts of your story first.
Sure.
You two are married, but
True.
When you got married, Laura, you did not realize at the time that you are, in fact, a woman. Have I articulated that correctly?
I think you've articulated it very well. I think one of the interesting things is that when Annie and I announced to the world that this is our 30th year of marriage, then everybody looks at us and says, well, how could that be that you've been married for 30 years? And the truth is that as my life has progressed, I have realized that I am a transgender woman, and I have made a transition about 10 years ago to lead my authentic life. And I think that's probably what your viewers want to hear first, is that it's about being authentic.
I'm totally about authenticity. So I can pan over and my audience can see me as well.
Hey.
I'm totally about authenticity. Authentic is one of my favorite words, and people that know me would testify to that. So Annie, I would like to ask you, what was it like for you to learn for the first time that your husband was actually a woman and was coming to discover that?
I don't think it was a big world-changing event in that it was a joint discovery effort. We had a long-distance romance, and we wrote letters, and through the letters we discovered each other in various ways. And one of the things that we discovered was that Laura liked to wear, or Laurens at the time, Laura liked to wear women's clothes, so we included that in our writing and fantasies and that sort of thing. And over time it became more of a need to express herself outwardly and in public and in the majority of our lives that way. And so it wasn't like a today I'm a guy, tomorrow I'm a gal. It was a gradual journey, and I think that kind of a journey is a much easier journey to deal with than one that is flipping a switch. One day you're one way and
Somewhere else?
I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and Laura was stationed in Carswell, Air Force Base, Texas, and then in Guam at Anderson Air Force Base.
Okay, so you had you were separated because of your separate assignments in the military.
Right. Our first 2 years that we were married, we were about 3,000 miles apart. We shared the same ocean, but that
We
was
were
about
both
as
in the
close as we
Pacific
got.
Ocean. That was the best the Air Force could do at the time. Is that when we decided that we were going to get together, then we asked the Air Force, well, how can I possibly get stationed with Annie? And they said, well, you have to get married. So we talked about it. We said, hey, let's get married. So now that we got married, then the next thing they said was oh, you know that part where I was going to get you together? Not exactly. Then it was kind of like, well, she's on Okinawa, we can get you to Guam. And it's like, get me to Guam. I mean, if you're looking at a globe, it's like, you know, an inch away, and it seems really close. But if you're swimming, it's about 1,200 miles. It's a ways. So that was our first 2 years married. We got married in a ceremony in Okinawa. Shinto wedding.
ceremony.
We're a little out of the box sometimes. So we had a Shinto wedding in Japan. And then I went to the island of Guam, and we lived 2 years apart.
Now, you had both previously been married, and you each had children from your first marriages.
Correct.
And where were they? Where were the kids? I guess were living with your former spouses when you were stationed overseas.
Well, my daughter was living with me in Okinawa, Japan.
Okay.
And Laura's boys were
my
living
boys
with
were
their
living.
mother in Texas.
Okay.
Although they came to visit us during the
Yeah.
summer.
So another great thing another great point to raise right here is the fact that now it's become policy that transgender individuals may serve openly in the military. But Laura, you're proof that transgender individuals have been serving in the military because you served in the military for long enough to retire from the military. And
Totally.
so I guess an important point to make for our audience that are new to this subject matter, I need to adjust my little podium there. I have a very high-tech studio.
Very high-tech.
Yes, I'm using a spice doily to rotate my camera. So one of the things that I want my viewers to understand is that gender identity, sexual orientation, physical appearance, and actual biology, none of those dictate the other. So what you might think one of those would mean about the other, it's not true. And my experience, and I'm going to let Laura and Annie chime in on this, but my experience is that a transgender person doesn't change their gender. They become aware of their gender and decide to honor it. So have I described that accurately in your...
Oh, absolutely. In fact, a friend of mine, Shelley Somerville, wrote on a Facebook blog the other day that transgender people don't change their gender. They are born with a gender, and they have been, or they are allowed or find themselves and are living their true gender. So it is totally true that you don't you're not changing anything. You're becoming your authentic self, and that's kind of where we started. Is that through the process, and I think Annie brings up a really interesting and important point in that my process of transitioning is different than others that we've talked to, and I've been around the transgender community for many years and heard many stories, and it is not often that you have a situation where a couple is growing and learning through this transgender transformation together. And I think that has a lot to do with how we have progressed, because as I was learning, so was Annie learning. It is very, very common. One of the things that I use as an analogy, and especially for male to female transgender, it's very common for men to hold the secret in their hands for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and then get to a spot, and it appears somewhere around 50 is a good spot, that they get tired of holding the brick. They've held the secret for so long that they literally drop the brick and show up in the morning as their authentic self, much to the dismay of the family, who has not had a chance to transition or even think about the transition. So there's a lot of stories that your audience may have heard, and I don't think this is necessarily different than the rest of the GLBT community, in that a radical change of coming out of the closet and saying, wow, hey everybody, I'm gay, and tomorrow I'm just going to live a life, it's a shock to people. So I think our gradual change has helped us transition to where we are now.
What would you like to add to that, Annie?
I do think that it's really important that the transgender community understand that there are loving families out there, but when your world gets turned upside down and the demand is made that now you have to accept me as I am, it becomes a little bit challenging, because that's turned my world upside down too.
So, in other words, this is a good point about coming out as now you and I are in a two-shot.
Yeah.
It's just a fascinating mirror. So this is what I like to say to people that are coming out of the closet in any way, shape, or form. They've had a lifetime to deal with it and to come to the understanding, and the people around us need time and space to learn about what we share with them. They're not going to be immediate experts, and as we know, a lot of them are going to be, in fact, misinformed.
I think one of the other things too, we were recently or Laura was recently part of a panel, and after the panel, someone came up to me and said, "Does that mean you're a lesbian?" And I said, actually, I haven't changed my sexual orientation at all. I'm just happen to be a heterosexual woman married to a transgender woman. And I think that is something that's really important for people to recognize, is that the changes or the perceived changes appear to both people in the couple or to all members in the family. Because now what happens, so your kid doesn't have a dad anymore? What do you mean I don't have a dad anymore? Who's going to walk me down the aisle during my wedding? You know, how are those things that you've grown up to expect going to change, and what's the impact on the totality of the community that you're involved in when you deal with those sorts of issues?
And any of those examples that you've set, have any of your children gotten married since you transitioned?
Oh, absolutely. Shelley got married. Now, it was interesting. We had a long discussion when Shelley got married as to whether I would present as Laura or as Lawrence, my former vision. and we decided that that although that it was okay for most of the participants, that we ended up actually having Lawrence be at the wedding.
Is it hard? Was it hard to show up as Lawrence, given that you knew that you weren't really? Did you feel like you were masquerading when you showed up as Lawrence?
Yes, but this is an interesting piece about transitioning in any shape or form, and I think this is germane not only to GLBT, but any transition that you're going to make is that there is always going to be that gray zone that you live in, where you're not in this territory and you're not in that territory. You're kind of in that middle transition spot. And so the short answer is yes, it was somewhat challenging, but at that point I was not actually living full-time either. So it wasn't a huge, it wouldn't be as hard, it was not as hard then as it would be now. It would be almost
because now
impossible.
You're Laura 24 hours a day,
yeah, I've been
7
Laura
days a
for
week.
10 years, so it'd be very hard for me to recreate the macho pilot guy again. But at that particular time. But another thing I want to add to what Annie was saying is that it is very important to understand that when any person, your spouse, dramatically, but we have kids, it affects our kids, it affects our parents, it affects our friends, it affects our people in our spiritual community, siblings, so all of that. Now I have to say, overall, one of the things that I would like to pass on as well is that when I accepted wholeheartedly myself as a trans woman, then my interaction with all other people in my sphere became much easier, because I wasn't trying to apologize for who I was just sharing with them who I was.
Well, you also weren't trying to be, or not hide, but you weren't trying to just be known as a woman. When you became comfortable with being known as a trans woman, then the rest of your life was able to exist also. So it's very difficult during the transition, and you want to fit in as this new gender person, but then that negates the rest of your life. It negates what our relationship is, because then again, am I a wife? Am I a lesbian partner? What is my identity? When she has to fit in as a woman, then she can't be my husband. So some of these different labels, while they're labels, they affect relationships. And so when she recognized and accepted herself as a trans woman, that allowed all the things that came before her decision to become her authentic self occurred. That gave validity to all that. And so all of us that had relationships with her prior to that weren't shoved out the door, which is what it feels like when you're trying to fit in as a woman, and then you don't want to show your pictures of yourself getting married as a, handsome officer in the military or whatever, or her pilot pictures or whatever. Those we can show because it's okay that she acknowledges that she is a trans woman.
I know, I understand completely. It's like the whole story is being told. I'm going to show a two-shot of you and I again. One of the things that I just love mirrors.
This is so magic.
Yes.
It's like, wow.
One of the things that I was sharing with both of you in a recent conversation is that I believe that the transgender equality movement and all of the education around it is going to be the most transformative for humanity as a whole, because there's never been a more powerful way to identify these human-made constructs about who and what people are or should be, and who they even have to be. I think that the transgender movement is identifying ways for us to all be who we declare and know ourselves to be. What would either one of you want to add to that? Or do you even agree?
Yeah, no, I would agree. And I'm happy to be leading the way for everybody. It is. I'll go back to what you said about the military. It has always been assumed that, macho guy pilots were macho guy pilots, and that there has not been any gay and especially no trans people in the military. We would never allow that. But in reality, there have been a host of GLBT players in the military forever, as long as humans have existed. And so it's interesting when the argument comes up that says, oh, should we or should we not have trans people in the military? The fact is that I was there, and I have to tell you, I belong to an organization called the Transgender American Veterans Association, and there are hundreds of us that have been in the military that after retirement have come out and said, hey, we have been part of it. And guess what? We got bombs on targets just like everybody else.
Well, you say hundreds, there are probably thousands, but hundreds that have identified to the extent that you are now engaged with each other in this association.
Exactly.
So, one of the ways that you have reinvented yourself is now that you basically coach people in transforming who they are. And I knew that was your line of work, and recently I asked you, how come the biggest transformation you've gone through in many ways isn't a part of the way that you market your work as a personal coach? And since then you've had some insights, and I was wondering if you would share with me and our viewers how your work is unfolding.
Well, and this is a transformative moment, and it really was hinged around our conversation that you and I had at the house, where that question was posed. And in reality, I think my words to you were, I don't hide that I am a trans woman who is a transformative coach, but on the other hand, I don't necessarily throw it out there as a marketing event. And your question to me was, well, why is that? And after thinking, you're hearing it here live first, Promo Homo TV, that we actually, from that conversation, made a change to the About Me page and some of the marketing materials as I move forward, because the truth of life is this, is that my belief in transformation deals with being authentic. Everyone, whether they're gay, straight, or otherwise, has a gift to give to this world, and the best way for you to give that gift to the world is for you to be truly authentic. And so when you asked that question, it was like, I felt like, well, I'm being very authentic, but then he's like, well, there's this piece that's not totally authentic. And I had to agree with you. So much of what you had said is that for me to be a life coach for anyone, I want them to know that they are seeing the full, authentic me. And so
and that you have extensive experience
and that
with transformation.
Yeah. So if you're going to make a transformation,
that you have extensive experience with transformation. Yes, totally.
So it was, I'm very thankful to Promo Homo TV and Nicholas Snow for engaging in a conversation that really has been transformative, and I look forward to a very strong change in the business. I think that authenticity will bring with it the natural connection to people, that people want to know who they're being with, and when they see that I'm okay to be the totally authentic me, that they will engage with me.
Well, my personal articulated mission statement is to honor and express creativity in a way that makes a difference. And I think that the Shakespeare quote, "To thine own self be true," is so right on. And I think that anytime we're willing to tell the truth about ourselves in any situation, about anything, that has a powerful, expansive result. So, for example, this stack of videotapes behind me is of a TV show I had in the 90s for 7 years. And I'm starting to put those episodes onto the promohomo.tv platform. But my goal at the time was to create conversations. It didn't matter if the person in the audience didn't agree with me, but by putting these topics out there into the world, I at the very least was creating a conversation within somebody. Or maybe there were two people in a living room that got into a debate by virtue of the fact that they were seeing LGBT content on their television screen in 1993. So the whole notion of telling the truth of ourselves, I think, gives other people permission to be who they are.
Well, and I would agree, and I would think that would be the value of adding that extra piece into the work that I'm doing and to the people around us. Because I think, as Annie will attest, as you become the authentic you, then that allows other people around you to be the authentic them. And our kids are great examples. Annie brought up the point about the fact that without being a trans woman, then if I were to say, people would ask me, what did you do? I was very hesitant to bring up the fact that I flew B-52s, because anybody who's been around the Air Force as long as I have would know that there are no women flying B-52s, and there would be this disconnect. So it was kind of like, okay, I'll have to kind of withhold that, or dad, being a dad. That's another important piece. I am dad. I look beautiful as dad, but our kids know that I am their father. And so when they engage with Annie and I, they engage with us as parents. And the other interesting thing, that when you talk about intersecting in the world, and this wasn't apparent to me early on, but when our kids started dating, there had to come a time in their experience with their potential mates where they had to say, well, we're going to go out to Palm Springs and see my parents. Oh, we have to have a quick discussion. Dad looks different than most other dads you've seen. But what's interesting is that
it's been a non-issue.
It has totally been a non-issue. Totally.
Do you think that has to do, Annie, with just all the education that's happened and the fact that your kids are young and therefore dating younger people with less narrow views of the world?
I really do. It was really funny because Laura was going to give the I'm Laura speech when our kids were in high school. Shelley found early on, she was about 18 or what, so when she found out. But the boys were they were still in high school, and so Laura was going to give them this speech over Christmas one year, and she had studied up for this, and she had her her whole Toastmaster speech ready to give. And
it was going to be a good one.
And so the kids, we were sitting down and we were getting ready to go out to a movie or whatever. So Laura says, I've got something to tell you. And one of them said, what, you're transgender? Yeah, we know about that. Okay, let's go to the movie.
And I'm like, hey, I've been practicing for months for this speech. This is good. It's got humor. It's got intro. It's got outro. I got the whole thing going. And this, of course, my kids especially know that I do like to talk. So it's like, yeah, we're going to the movies. Yeah. Let's.
Well, what surprises me the most about that story is that you would broach such a serious topic right before plans that you had as a family to go do something.
Well,
it's like
that allows the space for people to adjust to what they've heard.
Right, exactly. It's like, okay, we're going to go sit through the movie.
Yeah.
So, in the home stretch of this particular interview, I guess I'd like to talk to you, Laura, a little bit more about the way that you work with people and ways they can engage with you. And then, Annie, I'm going to I have a profound question for you.
Okay.
Actually, you know what? I'll ask you the profound question
so you can
be
think
thinking about it. All right?
Okay.
And then I'll come to you for the answer. But I'm guessing as the result, this is my question, as the result of the journey that you've been on with Laura, what happened in your life that wouldn't have otherwise that you cherish the most? So that's the question. You think about that, and I'm going to talk to.
3 bullet points, please.
I'm going to talk to Laura about how you engage with people in your work.
Well, and how do I find them? How do I
No,
work
what
with
do you
them?
what do you do with people? What is the process? Let's say I come to you for coaching. Describe a typical coachee
Okay.
journey.
Yeah, a typical journey would be this: is that we would meet and have a conversation somewhere.
Nancy Worthington says, "Congrats to my friends Laura Meeks and Annie Meeks."
Oh, Nancy!
And Sherelle and Barbara are watching, and we have other people watching as well, and they're giving you a shout out.
Hey.
Shout out to everybody, Nancy included. She's a
Okay.
good friend, and we thank you for watching. It's interesting. A normal engagement would be this: you and I would meet somewhere, and we'd be talking, and I love to talk about dreams and where you're going to go in life and what you want to do. And we may come to a realization that there are things that you want to do, a change in your life. We would have a conversation, typically over the phone, for about 30 or 40 minutes to talk about the changes and where you are. And through that conversation, then I can much better understand the kind of issues that you're looking at and make a judgment as to whether I think that you're in a position where the kind of information that I'm going to pass to you would be helpful to you. Now, assuming that all that goes well, then my normal program would be a 12-week structured program, either in a group or with an individual. So it kind of depends on whether you just want to talk to me personally or whether you want to be on a group is 10 or less, so we can work on these topics together. But there is literally a proven, repeatable, reliable plan to make changes. Building a vision, getting through your paradigms, building your dream in such a way that we can go through that material in 12 weeks and give you the basic tools so that you can make. Generally, we would focus on one specific goal, but the neat thing is after 12 weeks you have the tools that you need to make any other changes. Now, the only other difference would be is I have a host of other programs that can last anywhere from the 12-week initial period through a year or more, depending on how deep you want to go. Because transformation and change, there's absolutely nothing new. I would say there's no new incredible revelation that came out in the last 5 years that I'm bringing to the table. Basically, I'm bringing the last 150 years of change thinking to the table, but there is a process, and through that process then we engage for basically 12 weeks and then go from there.
Okay, and how do you think, obviously as we've been discussing in the show, you have great experience with significant transformation, and I'm wondering what are, I guess, 2 or 3 kernels of wisdom you can share related to your own transformation?
I would say the very first nugget of thought is that change occurs in us. And I'll go back to my self-acceptance. Very often I have been with all kinds of people in the LGBT community struggling to try to make a change in their life, especially around this sort of transition, but it really doesn't change anything, whether you're talking about a relationship or whether you're talking about a health issue or whatever. The biggest change is that you have to change how you're thinking about it, and so often we're barraged by negative media. I contend There are two challenges in life in America that we can change for the better. One is 24-hour news. I don't think is helping people. It spirals you down into a negative ditch that it's very hard to get out of. And so a lot of what we do is change that. And so for me, when I made a change in how I thought about myself, so I was no longer broken, I was no longer wrong, I was no longer at fault, or whatever other term you want to put it on yourself to beat yourself to death. When I realized that I'm okay, that I'm wonderful, I have lots of gifts to share, and that other people will engage with me as my authentic self, then once you make that change, then the world literally changes around you. So changing your thought, let's do that first.
I love that. One of my favorite quotes is, whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Begin it now. And that's by Goethe.
Ooh.
I love that quote. So Annie, I asked you, we're in a two-shot now, but for your dramatic answer, I'm gonna swing it around. And Pamela says, "Love you, Laura."
Oh, hey, Pamela.
I'm going to swing the camera around for your dramatic answer, but right now we're in a two-shot. So my question is, what experience have you encountered because of your journey with Laura that you would not have had otherwise, that you cherish the most?
I think that love is from the heart. It's not from a physical entity. That you love the person that someone is, that while they may have a very outstanding male persona, they also have an absolutely wonderful female persona. And I think that being able to share that journey with Laura as she's gone through it, and I think the love that we've shared together with ourselves, our family, our kids, our siblings, has probably been the greatest thing. We don't have a vanilla story, I guess, and I've never really liked vanilla much, so.
Vanilla is my favorite flavor, but that's only with ice cream.
This is an ice cream thing. It's not
only with ice cream. Okay, so now let's go into sort of a final remark or two. Let's start with you, Laura. About anything that we've talked about, or that any point that you think that we haven't made yet.
I don't have any crushing words of wisdom other than I think that the quest to be your authentic self is your quest, that everybody out in your audience has gifts to give to this world, and my hope and my mission statement involves helping people become their authentic self. And as you so aptly said, I've made some dramatic changes to make that happen in my life, and I hope that other people will see that as well, and that we can work together to make that happen for them as well.
And Annie?
I think what Laura said earlier is it is all about what you think. How you think controls your response to things. It controls just your view of the world, and you can choose to think negatively, or you can choose to think positively. You can choose love, or you can choose something different. And I think just the idea that you can choose how you respond to anything is really powerful. People need to take advantage of it.
Well, let me add one other thing, because I love what she said. Jim Carrey gave a speech to a graduate class, I think it was about 2 years ago, and he said, when you walk out that door, excuse me, you get two choices. You can either choose love or you can choose fear. So choose love.
I love that. And you have Pamela adds for you two. These are the two most powerful and loving. These are the two most powerful and loving I have the honor of knowing and calling my friends.
And thank you, Pamela.
Thank you, Pamela. I love you.
And the dogs look great.
And
Dogs look great.
oh, that's the Pamela that I know.
That's the Pamela.
Yeah. Hey. So, well, thank you both for being on the show. I really appreciate it. And
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you for
thank
having
you.
us. This has been fun.
Well, it's been my pleasure. And for those of you in the viewing audience, there we go. Okay. I promise I'm going to have a fancier studio at some point. But for now, I'm choosing substance over form. I think that's the way to say it.
Yes.
So this has been promohomo.tv. It's Laura Meeks, MEEKS coach.com, right? LauraMeeksCoach.com for more information. And until next time, this is Nicholas Snow. Thank you for watching.
Built upon decades of multimedia entertainment activism, this is promohomo.tv, connecting the circuitry of humanity. This program is distributed in association with Pink Banana Media. I'm your host, Nicholas Snow, openly gay in the media since the mid-1980s. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat at PromoHomoTV, and on Facebook.com/Nicholas.Snow. For their generous support of this episode, I would like to thank Desert Regional Medical Center, Desert AIDS Project, Lulu California Bistro, and 849 Restaurant and Lounge. PromoHomo.tv is proud to spotlight many important organizations and causes, including Palm Springs Pride and the LGBT Community Center of the Desert. You may also find me in the pages of GED Magazine, GayDesertGuide.com, the Huffington Post, and other media outlets. For this and so much more, visit promohomo.tv.